Alright guys, so we are inside the beautiful world of Blender 3D, and here we're going to be creating that amazing kitchen which you saw in the intro. So yeah, the first thing which you want to do in what do you call them, in like architecture renders or like interior renders, is first of all you need to Google the dimensions of your room. So I'm just gonna search like I don't know, average kitchen, ignore the typo there, average kitchen height. So I'm just gonna, nope, not the kitchen. Actually, let's just do average room height. So we're gonna get an okay, so 8 to 10 feet, I believe. Okay, so let's do 9 feet. How about that? So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna be, first of all, I'm just gonna be taking this default cube, and I'm gonna be pressing G to move, and I'm gonna be pressing Control to holding Control to to basically snap it, and I'm gonna be snapping it on this axis so that it's perfectly centered. So once that is done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be actually I'm just going to increase the size, increase the scale. So the dimensions, yeah, these dimensions are what is really important for us, because in the Z dimensions you see that we have 2 meters right here, and I'm just going to press 9 and FT for feet, so that's automatically going to convert it. So you're going to see that it's going to throw off our scale, that position. So I'm just going to press G and Control again. You're going to see that it's not going to perfectly align this time, but I'm just going to press G and Z to move it in the Z axis. I'm just going to be eyeballing it to make sure that it's somewhat accurately placed on the ground, but it doesn't really matter that much. Okay, so now our height is done, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be locking this. So I'm going to go to the Z, and I'm going to be pressing this lock button right here. Now if I scale it up, you're going to see that it's going to scale in all axes except for the Z axis, right? So we can just like, I don't know, scale it something like that. Oops, never mind, that was my bad. Something like that should probably be good. However, we can obviously change it later on as well. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is, what I like to do is just set up my camera first. So, but before that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be making a window for us, right? Because it's going to be mainly lit from a window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this cube, and I'm going to press tab to go to the edit mode, and you can just go to the face select mode. Now I am expecting you guys to know about these modes and how to use edit mode and all that. So yeah, that's basically it. And we're just going to select this face, and we're going to press I, and we're going to inset it slightly. Now you're going to see that it's not going to inset that well, like it's not uniform from all sides. Although we don't want it to be that uniform, we don't need it to be that uniform, but I'm going to teach you how to make it uniform as well. So get out of your edit mode and just press Control A to apply your transformations, because when we scaled it up, you're going to see that it's not applied right now, right? That's just a thing in Blender, because you're going to see that the scale is not 1. If these are 1, then you're going to see that it's applied. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control A. I'm going to apply the scale. You don't need to apply any other transformations, but you can do that if you want. So yeah, I'm just going to go back to edit mode by pressing tab, and I'm going to press I, and I'm going to see that it's going to uniformly what do you call it? It's going to uniformly scale inset it. Okay, so I'm just going to make it something like, I don't know, something like that probably. And I'm going to go to edge select mode, and I'm going to be selecting this edge, and I'm just going to be moving it in the Y axis, something like that. And so that's going to be our window. And I'm just going to go to face select mode, and I'm just going to delete this face. Now we could obviously make a window there, but since we're not going to see it, I'm not going to worry about that as much. I'm just going to delete and faces. You're going to see that it's going to create a hole for us. And I'll just press tab to get out of edit mode. And now let's go inside our view, and let's set up our camera. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that we already do have a camera. And by the way, I'm just going to delete this light because we don't really need it. And by the way, just save your project. So I'm just going to press this button right here to go to the camera. Now you're going to see if I move my camera, you're going to see that we actually get out of our camera. Okay, so in order to prevent that from happening, in order to move our camera, what we're going to be doing is that we're just going to go inside the camera settings first of all, and then we can go to inside these settings. If you are not seeing them, just press this button right here, this thing right here, and you're going to open them. Go to view, and in here we can just lock, inside this view lock, you can just lock camera to view. Now what that's going to do is that if I press it, if I check it, and if I move my view, you're going to see our camera is going to go along with it. Okay, so that's a really useful tool, and I use it to position my camera almost all the time. Alternatively, you can obviously use your move tools. You can just select this, and you can use your move tools to place that, but that's very inefficient, and I would certainly not recommend you to do that. But yeah, that is the best option in my opinion. So one thing which I'm going to do is that right now you're going to see that it's a landscape render. So in order to make it a vertical render, because I want it to be Instagram ready, I want it to be in the dimensions of Instagram. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my output properties, and here we can just increase the resolution of Y, or we can decrease the resolution of X, whatever you want. Okay, so I'm just going to increase the resolution of Y to something like, I don't know, 2200, something like that should be good. So that's almost Instagram resolution. Okay, perfect. So next up, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to go inside my camera, and we're going to set our perspective, or what do you call it, our camera focal length. Now that is very important. Yeah, so I feel like since this is an interior render and we are basically just shooting an indoor scene, I think something like 50 is way too high for us. On average, your iPhone camera has a focal length of around 26 millimeters. I'm just going to set it to something like 35 because we don't want it to be as wide, but something like 35 should be good. However, I don't recommend you to like worry too much about it, because we're learning 3D modeling here and we're not learning what do you call it, we're not learning cameras and all that stuff, you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it something like that, probably. Yeah, how about something like that should be good for now. Obviously we can change it later on, but one thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to be going to selecting this and going to edit mode, and I'm going to be selecting this edge right here, this one, and I'm going to be moving it in the y-axis a little there so that it's not actually visible in our camera. A little more, you're going to see something like that, so that it's not actually visible in our camera, and that is perfect. Cool. So our camera and our frame is basically set up. So now let's start with the actual modeling. So what I'm going to do for that is, okay, one thing which I'm noticing right now is that this space kind of feels a little small for me, doesn't it? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce this to something like, I don't know, 28 maybe. So a little yeah, something like that should be good. We're just going to adjust this later on, this window size. So yeah, by the way, just save your project and let's actually start with the modeling. So for the modeling, what I'm going to use mainly is I'm going to be using an add-on called Blender Kit. Now it's an absolutely amazing add-on, and basically you can model everything out on your own and you can create models, but that's going to take forever. So I recommend you to use this this add-on. You could obviously go to the internet and find 3D models. You can just select, you can just choose models from these websites, Free3D, TurboSquid, and CG Trader, etc. But I would recommend you to use that because it's just much easier. Like for example, if you use this model, for this, you can just use any. By the way, if you use this model, you have to download it. You have to import the textures. You have to make sure that it's in the native Blender format, which thankfully these are, but many aren't. For example, this curtain model, it's in .mb format. I don't even know what that stands for. So like that's the thing now. That's the thing. So basically, so I prefer using this add-on, Blender Kit, with which you can like easily search for models and you can just import them directly to Blender, and the textures and everything is already set up. So yeah, to actually install that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Blender Kit add-on. I'm just going to search Blender Kit add-on, and you can just download the Blender Kit add-on from the first website. It's blenderkit.com, and you can just download this right here. Just press that download button, and it does show you all the settings, all the what do you call them, all the instructions right here. But once this is downloaded, you can just drag it to, you can just save it wherever you want. But then you're just going to go to Blender, and you're just going to go to Edit, Preferences, and inside this add-on menu, you can just press Install, and you can just browse to wherever you have that saved. So I think it's in Downloads. Where is it? Yeah, so Blender Kit right there, Blender Kit, this thing right here, Blender Kit, and you can just download, you can select it and press Install Add-on. I'm not going to do that because I already do have it installed. So you're going to see Blender Kit Online Asset Library. You're just going to see it, and you just have to check it once you install it. So yeah, that's basically it. And once you've done that, you're going to see this extra Blender Kit menu right here, and you can just search for anything you want, and it's going to be presented to you. So yeah, that is perfect. One thing which I'm going to do before we start using Blender Kit is that I'm going to be creating the countertop, and the countertop is something which is very easy to create. So I'm just going to create that on my own. I'm just going to create a cube. Let's go to our camera mode, and I'm just going to scale it down, of course. And I'm going to press G and Shift Z so that I'm not moving in the Z axis. I'm only moving in the X and Y axis. I'm going to place it something like that, maybe. Yep. And I'm going to be scaling it up in the Y axis. Oops, sorry, in the X axis. I guess something like that should be good. And let's move it up in the Z axis slightly so that it's taller as well. Something like that might be good, but let's scale it down in the x-axis a little bit. Yeah, I think that is perfect. And now what I'm going to do with this is that I'm going to be, let's actually make it a little thicker as well. Perfect. So next up, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be selecting this, and I'm going to go to edit mode, and you're going to go to the this front face, and I'm going to be insetting it slightly, something like that. But you're going to see it's not uniform again because we forgot to do that, because we forgot to apply the scale. So I'm just going to press Control A and scale, press tab, and now you're going to see that it's I think something like that should be good, probably. Let's go to our camera and see. Maybe a little more than that. Something like that should probably be good. Yeah, perfect. Cool. So once that is done, I'm going to press E and I'm going to extrude it. However, I'm going to extrude it inside so that it's basically becoming a countertop, and we're going to add chairs here. So yeah, that is basically done, and it was that easy to make this countertop. So that is basically done. And after that, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it up slightly so that's a little taller. We can obviously make changes later on, and we will most probably make changes later on. We will make a lot of changes later on. So yeah, once that is done, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be making cupboards, right? So I'm going to make some cupboards there, and then I'm going to make these drawers and all that. So what I'm going to do for that is that first of all, I'm just going to be using a cube. Or rather, what I can do, actually never mind, I'm just going to create a new cube. I was thinking of reusing this mesh, but I think just creating a new one is going to be much easier. I'm just going to go to my side view, and I'm going to be placing it something like that. Let's scale it down, place it something like that. Let's go to our front view, and let's one thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to be making sure that it's flushed with the back wall. So I'm just going to do something like that. Even if it's intersecting a little bit, doesn't really matter, but it shouldn't be in front of it, okay? It must be intersecting. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to be placing it accordingly. I'm just going to move it along the x-axis, something like that. Something like that. And you're going to see that I'm making sure that it's intersecting a little bit. Not that much, actually. I don't want it to intersect it that much, but I'm going to make sure that it is almost intersecting. Actually, I think I might be fine with just leaving it really close and not perfectly intersecting. I think something like that is good. So next up, what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be scaling it down in the y-axis, something like that, and I'm going to be scaling it up in the z-axis so that it's looking more like a cupboard. I think something like that. Yeah, I think that shape should be not perfect, actually. It is a little too thick. Oops. In the y-axis, something like that. Let's go to the side view and make sure that it's flushed. Perfect. And one thing which I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to press S, and I'm going to press Shift Y to make it bigger. However, we're not extending it in this axis, in the y-axis, because we don't really want that. I'm going to go to the front view and make sure that it's not intersecting. Perfect. So yeah, that is basically it. And one other thing which I'm going to be doing, actually never mind, I think we're good. So yeah, I think this is pretty good. However, I'm going to be making it a little thinner, just a tad bit. Let's go to our front view again, and let's make sure that it's aligned. Okay, perfect. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be duplicating this, but before I do that, I'm going to make sure that it's the actual shape which I want. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be pressing tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to be selecting the front face, and let's insert it a little bit, something like that. I think we have a duplicate for some reason. I'm just going to delete that. Yeah, so by the way, we're just going to select this front face, and we're going to insert it, and then I'm going to extrude it slightly inside, something like that, so that it's so that it looks more like a cupboard, if that makes sense. I think something like that should be good. I think that's a little too much. Something like that might be good. Yeah, perfect. So it's gonna catch some reflections and all that, and it's gonna look it's gonna look a little more realistic. But yeah, it's not really that much of an important thing. But yeah, I still would recommend you to do that. And lastly, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be adding a bevel modifier. Now, obviously, I could go to edit mode, and I could select everything, and then I could just bevel it. and that would do the same exact thing which I want. However, it's going to make it destructive. It's going to be destructive because then I can't go back and I can't adjust the bevel and all that. But if I use a modifier, so if I go to modifier menu and if I add a modifier, bevel modifier, you're going to see that I can change the offset and the segments anytime I want. Okay, so that's just going to be much better for me. If say I want to make changes later on and all that. So 0.06 might be good, and segment I'm just going to make it 3 to make sure that it's smooth and all that. And I'm just going to right click and shade smooth as well. And I'm just going to go to my object data properties, and in this normals I'm going to press auto smooth. That's just going to fix some shading issues if it has any. Yeah, perfect. So I think that is done. And next up what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be actually, one thing which we can do is you can just select this edge right here, this edge and this edge, and you can just move it in the x-axis a little bit there, so that we can add our actually never mind, I'm not going to do that, or maybe a little bit, because we're going to be adding the handles later on. So yeah, once that is done, I'm just going to go to my X-ray mode so that I can see through this, and then I'm going to be duplicating this. So Shift D and press X to like lock it to x-axis, something like that should be good. GX, something like that may be good. And I'm going to select I'm going to select these two cubes, and then I'm going to be duplicating both of them in the x-axis. I could obviously just pick one and just do that, but that's just gonna save us some time. And yeah, okay, so let's see how many more do we need. I guess I'm just gonna need 2 more, maybe. Yeah, 2 more should probably be enough. I'm just gonna go there, something like that should be good. And yeah, perfect. So I'm just gonna get out of my edit mode, and you're gonna see that we have our cupboards ready, and it's perfect. So that is done. Now let's make our what do you call them, our shelves. Okay, so shelves are going to be pretty similar to this as well, and we're just going to be, in fact we're going to be using the same exact mesh. So I'm just going to be pressing Shift D, and I'm going to press Z to move it down. I'm just going to move it something like that, and we are obviously going to be making some changes to this. Actually, I'm not going to shade it smooth because I think it's causing some weird shading issues. So I'm just going to individually select all of them and shade them flat, because I don't think we really need that, because it's mostly just a flat surface and we have enough segments in our bevel modifier that I don't think we're going to need any smoothing. So first thing which I'm going to do is that I'm going to be scaling it up in the y-axis, because this is a shelf and it has to be like more out. It has to be like thicker. Perfect. And the other thing which I'm going to be doing is that I think the height is mostly just perfect, just a tad bit smaller, and then I'm going to be increasing the scale in the x-axis quite a bit, actually, something like that. Let's just go to my front view, and I'm going to be moving it something like that. Let's see how that is. I think it's a little too huge. Maybe how about we like decrease the scale in the z-axis, something like that. I think that's perfect. Yeah, perfect. So one thing which I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be pushing it a little back. I could obviously reduce the scale, but pushing it back is going to be easier. So yeah, I'm just going to do that, and now I think it's perfect. I'm just going to go to my front view, and I'm just going to be duplicating this like we did with the cupboards. Let's just go to my X-ray mode so I can see what's actually going on. Just make sure that they are aligned properly, and I'm just going to be selecting both of them, and we're going to be doing the exact same thing once again. So I hope nothing is confusing. If anything is confusing you, by the way, you can just feel free to start a discussion down below, and I'll be sure to reply to you, and I'd love to help you guys. Apart from that, I think we are good to go. I'm just going to do one thing, and that is going to be, I'm going to create a new cube, and I'm going to be placing it something like that. So I'm just going to be scaling it down, and I'm going to be placing it something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to be placing it like that. Let's go to our top view, and let's increase the scale in the x-axis, something like that. Something like that, so it just matches the length of the room. And then I'm just gonna, let's actually just go to our X-ray mode, and I'm going to be moving it back, something like that. let's get out of our X-ray mode. You're gonna see that that's just gonna give us a just a nice feel. Yeah, so there was no specific reason to do that, but it just looks nice, so that's why I just did it. And usually kitchens do have that, so I think that is pretty good, and we're basically done with our basic modeling. And I think we should start adding objects.